What's up, guys? It's Lady Katherine here, and I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little funky. I have been sick for almost a week now. But I wanted to, while I had some energy to do these, I wanted to bring another book review to you guys. This book we're going to review is called The Way of the Hedge Witch: Rituals and Spells for Hearth and Home by Arin Murph Hiscock. Now, you don't have to stare at the screen. You can completely listen to this one um, after we go through the table of contents. I practice, my particular path consists of dragon magic, hoodoo, green witchcraft, hedge witchcraft, and kitchen witchcraft, to name a few influences. So this was a logical book for me to read. And in a way, I didn't like this near as much as I liked her book, The Way of the Green Witch, but I still did like the book. I just didn't like it near as much. I felt like there was some things missing here in this particular book. So let's dive in right quick to that table of contents here. You get an introduction, obviously. Then in chapter 1, practicing spirituality in the home, talking about a home-based spirituality. I always think that is a good thing to talk about because a lot of people don't know how to, I guess, practice in the home so much, because a lot of witchcraft is involved with nature, that doing things in the home is maybe a little uncomfortable, or a little bit of like a foreign thing to most. Okay, so I thought this chapter was really, really good. Chapter 2, Hearth and Home as Sacred Space. This is talking about how your hearth and your home in general are your sacred space. How you can make them more sacred. How you can turn basic tasks such as sweeping into a spiritual act in order to upkeep your home and your hearth as that spiritual space. In Chapter 3, Working with the Spiritual Hearth, this is talking about utilizing your hearth can be any kind of center point in the home, and how do you utilize that center space, your hearth, so to speak, as how do you utilize it for working purposes? All right. Chapter 4, The Cauldron as a Symbol of Life in the Hearth. This is talking about how back in I want to say the olden days, the center of the home was always a place where there was a fire, you cooked, you warmed your house up with it, and, before all of our modern conveniences. And it talks about the symbolism of the cauldron as a symbol of life, as well as a symbol of safety, sacred space, things like that. And I really did like that chapter as well. It brought a new perspective to it. I guess you could say it brought me into a new perspective of hedge witchcraft and really what it's all about. Chapter 5, Hearth, Deities, and Spirits. Just what the title is, it talks about deities of the hearth, as well as spirits of the hearth and how to work with them. Chapter 6, Domestic Activity is Sacred. This chapter goes more in depth than I think it was like chapter 1 does, and it really dives down and breaks every little domestic activity down and how you can view it as sacred or how you can make it sacred. Chapter 7, Protecting House and Home. Again, that's self-explanatory. It's all about protection. Chapter 8 kind of dives a little bit more into kitchen witchcraft, as it is about magic in the kitchen. Chapter 9, The Spiritual Aspect of Food. It talks about how food can be a spiritual act. It can also be, you can also cook certain things in order to obtain certain magical results as well when ingested. Chapter 10, Crafts, Activities, and Techniques. These are just more, get your hands dirty and work as a hedge witch. Kind of chapter, as well as chapter 11, talks about spells, rituals, and recipes that a Hearth Witch you normally would utilize, as well as it talks about creating your own ritual spells and recipes as well. Then you have your basic appendix and bibliography. So all in all, you do learn quite a bit. But I felt like there were some things missing here and there within this book. So let's start with the prose. The pros are, it is very easy to read. It does not take long to read. I think it took me 2 hours at the most to read because I struggled with this book particularly. There's a lot of good information and advice in here, and it's very well written. All right. And a lot of the things that I found in this book, you could actually Google and find all the same information online as well. Some of the cons, I personally, my only personal con for this is that I felt like there was pieces missing, and it led me to actually doing more research on hedge witchcraft in order to fill in the missing pieces in the education that I received from this book. But that's just my own personal con. The other con is there were some things in this book that I could not find when doing my, I guess you say, credit check on the book, if you will. Anything that's a claim that I feel like is a claim, or something that's, like this, I heard this from another one or whatever. I always Google those kinds of things to make sure that it is something legitimate. Some of those things I could not find. So I have essentially equated them to it being her opinion or her way of doing things, which I found quite a few of those things throughout this book. So really, to me, it's more of a, not necessarily a con, but a minor irritant that I struggled with. When I read a book on the way, like this one, The Way of the Hedge Witch, where it's supposed to be a basic book on hedge witchcraft, I want factual information. I don't want opinions. But I also know that in all books, no matter what kind of book they are, you're going to get opinions mixed with fact that you can look up and research more frequently or more in depth. So I really wouldn't put it as neither a con nor a pro, just a minor irritant at that point. So that is my review of The Way of the Hedge Witch by Arin Murph Hiscock. And until next time, guys, namaste.